When my mother-in-law first saw me, she immediately said, "Leave my son." But as soon as Charlie entered the room, my future mother-in-law fell silent. "My name is Agata. I'm 23 years old." I looked out the taxi window at the unfamiliar houses and streets of a foreign city, wondering if I had done the right thing. Emotions were seething in my chest, and my palms were sweating. I had to wipe them on my jeans. Charlie, my husband, smiled, touched my hand and reassured me, "Don't worry, your parents will really like you. You are just a princess and the dream of any mother-in-law." I tried to hold back a smile. Maybe I am worrying for nothing. I've just read too many jokes about the relationship between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. Remembering my past, I realized my rootlessness. Finding myself in an orphanage at the age of 5, I barely remembered my childhood. Charlie, hugging me, reassured me, "Mom will love you more than me." These words calmed me down and I snuggled up to my husband, feeling a little calmer. When the taxi driver stopped at a new 5-story building and we climbed to the 3rd floor, I felt the excitement take over me again. We were met at the door by a miniature and amazingly beautiful woman. Her gray hair and tired but wise look indicated her venerable age. When Charlie introduced me to my mother as his wife, she barely exhaled. "Charlie," she whispered and, turning her gaze to me, shuddered slightly. "Mom, dear, did you really forget to let us in?" Out of shock, Charlie left and pulled me along with him. "Emma, this is my wife, Agatha. Please accept her as your new daughter," he announced, and his laughter rang out once more. Charlie's mother tried to smile, but her lips trembled, and her arms, hugging her son, left traces of white spots on his shoulder. She hugged me awkwardly. "Sorry, girl, this is all so unexpected," she muttered. We were seated at the table, and an hour later Charlie's father joined us. He turned out to be a kind and cheerful person who easily diffused tense situations. Despite my fears, meeting Charlie's parents went well. The food was delicious. The conversations were interesting, and his parents were kind. But I felt that Charlie's mother, Emma, was looking at me strangely, and when I met her gaze, she looked away. Well, no wonder, I thought. The daughter-in-law suddenly fell from the sky. We didn't even have a wedding. I would have looked the same way too. In the evening, our family was getting ready for bed. Emma suggested that we sleep in her son's former room. Charlie and Dad went out into the yard, and I decided to help Emma clear the table and wash the dishes. We worked in silence at first, but Emma looked tense. I tried to find words to relax the atmosphere, but nothing decent came to mind. Then the mother-in-law spoke up. "How did you meet? What is it?" she asked, not looking at me. "How long have you been in a relationship with Charlie? He was rarely at home and cold, so I was wondering." I smiled, remembering our dating story like a short romance from a movie. It was a frozen day. I came back from dancing. I have been studying them for 3 years, starting from the 5th year of university. I slipped on the slippery road, but strong hands caught me. I felt saved when I saw Charlie's beautiful face under the street lamp. On our first date, we went to the ice rink because I said I couldn't skate, but I dreamed of learning. It was fun and romantic. We kissed for the first time at the ice rink. I fell on Charlie like I was on a soft pillow. He was laughing despite the impact of his back on the ice. It started snowing. White flakes fell on his handsome face, and I kissed him. Our kiss was short and awkward, and I was embarrassed. On the next date, he took me to the cinema, in the last row. I don't remember much about the movie, but I liked his kisses more than the popcorn. Then we went to a restaurant and walked around the city. We reached his house, and I stayed until morning. It was fast. I didn't expect this, but Charlie was like a magnet to me. He took care of me like no one else. After all, I had no relatives. For example, when my door handle broke, Charlie arrived an hour later with all the tools to fix it. If I wanted fruit, they would appear after an hour, as if by magic, and all thanks to Charlie. Then I got sick, and he moved in to take care of me. So we started living together in an apartment that the state had allocated to me. Charlie took care of me, cooked breakfasts, treated me to bed surprises, and in the evening we cooked dinners together, enjoying laughter and kisses. The last date in our candy bouquet period was held at the registry office. We happened to be passing by, and Charlie asked if I had my passport with me. When he found out that I had the documents, he got down on one knee and announced that I was the one he had been looking for all his life. He offered to apply, and I agreed. A month later, we became husband and wife. The ceremony was modest, without pathos and without guests. It was Charlie's wish. He said that the wedding was a special moment for him, which he wanted to save only for the two of us. I want you to be my wife so much as soon as possible, Charlie assured me, showering me with kisses. Later, he admitted that he did not want to call his parents so as not to embarrass me, given that I do not have my own loved ones. It touched me. Any words he said reached my heart like a bullet. After the wedding, Charlie decided to introduce me to his parents. We bought plane tickets and flew to the city where he grew up. I know it may seem hasty and impulsive to you, but I love him with all my heart. I concluded my story. I wiped the wet plates, ignoring the jets of water splashing from the faucet. Emma was leaning over the sink, her fingers gripping the edge, her shoulders shaking. When I saw this, I screamed in fright and touched her shoulder. Emma, what happened? Are you feeling unwell? In response, the woman suddenly turned to me. There was no smile on her face. Her eyes expressed something scared. Her lips trembled. Their contour changed. Divorce him. You have to leave my son, she whispered. What are you saying? I asked, startled, stepping back, but she came straight at me, grabbed my shoulders with soapy hands. Drop it and go away, you fool, she cried emotionally. You don't belong here. You don't understand that. Suddenly there was the sound of a door slamming and man laughing. Emma, hearing this, abruptly released me and returned to the sink. You heard me, the mother-in-law whispered. Oh my God, has she gone crazy? I thought fearfully, recalling my experience of dealing with such cases. I studied to be a nurse and worked in psychiatry not so long ago, seeing various manifestations of ailments. My mother-in-law's changing emotional atmosphere scared me, but I didn't tell my husband anything. It was an unsettling night. I was afraid that at any moment the door would open and Emma, with disheveled hair and pale face, would enter the room like in a horror movie. I fell asleep only in the morning. I woke up to my husband's kisses and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Get up, my wife, Charlie smiled, handing me a cup. Mom is making pancakes. It's time for breakfast. The morning passed quietly, but then Charlie and his father left the house again. The son promised to help his father with the car in the garage. I was afraid to be alone with Emma, but I tried not to show my fear. Towards noon, Emma invited me to have tea. I looked at her timidly and humbly sat down at the table. The tea was fragrant, and the honey made it sweet. But along with the question, what do you even know about Charlie? Bitterness leaked out. I replied, I know he loves me, and this is important to me. Emma made a comment that Charlie was not married for the first time, and they had problems that I didn't know anything about. She warned me not to repeat the fate of his first wife. I was at a loss to understand why he hadn't told me about it earlier. Emma explained fervently that Charlie was her son and she loved him, but she had to warn me. My hands were shaking as I tried to put the cup on the saucer. I sincerely did not understand the essence of what was happening. Emma brought documents showing that Charlie had a lawsuit and a case. I read, but I couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. It seemed like the plot of some kind of horror movie. It turns out that his ex-wife had terrible problems because of Charlie. I couldn't accept it about him because he seemed so caring and kind. My irritation grew, and I doubted Emma's words. Why did she put up with it for so long? Why didn't you leave right away? Maybe it was postpartum depression, as I claimed, getting carried away with medical cases. But the doubts were strong, because the reality described in the documents was terrible. Emma's lips curled. The certificate that Laura had problems was very expensive for our family, she said, looking me straight in the eye. I'm not proud of the act. I feel sorry for Charlie's ex-wife. Understand, the mother will always side with the child. It's hard to explain, but it's like your instinct is working. The mind resists, but the heart demands to protect its child. So I wanted to save my son. Whatever he is, I love Charlie. I blinked often. My eyes began to sting. I would like a mother like you, I said thoughtfully, pushing the documents away. Even if it's true, people change. I believe that Charlie truly loves me. Our story is different, not like this Laura's. Her end will be different too. And he didn't tell me about it, because who wants to brag about it anyway? Of course, he wanted me to like him, but how else? I didn't understand why I was so desperate to justify and protect Charlie, but I didn't doubt his feelings for me for a second. I remembered how he took care of me when I had a fever, how he cooked broth and rice porridge, and then fed me like a baby. No, he couldn't be the man Laura had told him about. So either his ex-wife was crazy or a jealous fool who made it up. Emma finished her tea and put the cup in the sink. God forbid, daughter, she muttered. I hope. We spent almost 2 weeks with our parents. Then it was time to return to their native lands. I had a job waiting for me, and Charlie, who had recently quit because of the injustice of his superiors, was also going to look for a new place. Emma hugged me tightly to her as she said goodbye. I felt her heart beating hard. If anything, you can always come to me, she whispered in my ear, and then added, I'll help you. My heart clenched in my chest. I hugged Emma, too, and looked gratefully into the woman's face and her wise eyes. At home, the usual routine began, but slowly and smoothly. The relationship between Charlie and me began to change. He stopped spoiling me with breakfast. He demanded that I perform my own duties. Even though he still couldn't find a job, I had to get up earlier and cook a fresh breakfast, and then a fresh lunch and dinner, because Charlie didn't eat yesterday's food. If the house was dirty, he would get angry and claim that he was allergic to dust, and things lying out of place infuriated him. One day I was late for a shift and scattered cosmetics, a curling iron around the house, threw a clothes hanger on the floor. When I returned from a hard day in the hospital, my husband was hysterical. I couldn't stand it. If you don't like the mess, then you can get up and clean up. You're not working anyway, I shouted resentfully. Charlie angrily grabbed a curling iron and threw it at me. I gasped, dodged, and he, standing next to me, loomed over me menacingly. What did you say? I'm looking for a job, Agatha. It's okay for you to live like this, but not for me. Tired, amazed by this turn, I went to the kitchen like a robot to cook dinner before another work shift. I decided to keep silent about the money, which we didn't have enough, and that there wasn't enough for some seafood that Charlie loved so much. After dinner, Charlie apologized. I'm sorry. I'm just a man. I want to take care of you, provide for you, buy gifts. But it doesn't work out with work, so I got angry. Honey, do you forgive me? I melted and nodded. Still, I really wanted to be loved, and also to get my Charlie back, sensitive and kind. However, it only got worse gradually. He changed my life. At first, he asked not to go to the dance, said he was jealous. Who are you trying for? And money needs to be saved. I obeyed. Then he methodically got rid of my friends, took control of me, deftly manipulating me. Without dancing, having to constantly cook for him and eat with him, I began to gain weight. However, Charlie even liked it. He kissed me, complimented me, said that I had become more appetizing. My clothes have become too small for me. I stopped wearing dresses and semi-transparent blouses, started wearing only jeans, tracksuits, sweatshirts and oversized t-shirts. We chose them together with Charlie. He liked it so much. Cosmetics were thrown into a far drawer, and the curling iron was covered with a layer of dust. Charlie loved naturalness. I didn't notice that he was making a gray mouse out of me that no one would ever look at. Then Charlie started controlling my time. He knew how long it took for me to get from work to home. Whenever I stayed late, he was greeted with shouts. Do you understand that I'm just worried? I love you, shouted Charlie, although his words were at odds with his actions. He raised his hand at me several times out of banal jealousy. It seemed that in his eyes I was flirting with men, even if I was just breathing or looking into their eyes. However, after that he crawled on his knees in front of me, begged for forgiveness, gave flowers and gifts, for which he took money from nowhere. He convinced me that all the problems were caused by stress, and I swallowed tears, put on turtlenecks to hide the bruises, but I believed because she continued to love and saw in his despair the men she met that winter day. I was in the hospital and I was sick. I often took extra shifts to earn money, and stress and lack of sleep did their job. I was saved by a doctor, Harry, a good and kind guy. He also called my husband Charlie and told him that I was lying in the ward. When Charlie arrived, instead of taking care of me, he attacked me with questions. Why did a guy call me? He hissed in my ear. Are you even adequate? Do you even go to work to be nice to someone? That's why you put on makeup, right? Tears welled up from my tired eyes. You know what, Charlie? I whispered. Go to hell. The next second, a purple-faced man yanked the IV out of my hand, making me scream. He swung at me, and I just squeezed my eyes shut, accepting the inevitable. However, there was no blow. I opened my eyes a little and noticed Harry pushing his husband away. Charlie was breathing heavily, lying on the next bed, where the doctor pushed him. Agatha, what's going on? Harry asked. I saw the bruises on your arms. Tell me, did he do this? It's not normal. I just opened my mouth a little, but I couldn't admit what was happening to him. Is that you? Charlie suddenly growled, glaring at the doctor. Did you see the bruises on her body? Why the hell were you looking at her body at all? She's someone else's wife. She belongs to me. Is it clear to you? Then the man looked at the exhausted me and said, are you sleeping with him? And I loved you so much. My trembling fingers clenched into fists. You know, Charlie, I don't belong to you anymore. I'm filing for divorce, I said dryly, and the words seemed to cut through my throat like sharp shards of glass. Charlie's face twisted. He wanted to object, but Harry stepped in again. I'll have to call the police if you don't leave. The doctor noticed. Charlie panted heavily and then shot out of the room, slamming the door loudly. A doctor was rushing to me, trying to restore order after my visitor caused real chaos. Charlie, my husband, chose to remain silent, not insisting on his advice, and for this I am immensely grateful to him. When Harry finished his business, changed the IV and gave me a sedative, he gently put his hand on my shoulder. Soon the drugs will take effect and you will be able to rest, he said softly, and then added, everything will be fine. I nodded, turned to the wall and fell asleep. I stayed true to my decision to file for divorce. But the story didn't end so easily. At first, Charlie defiantly left the apartment, taking with him a lot of things that belonged to me. He took out almost all the equipment and what he could not take away, smashed and destroyed. Then he started chasing me, driving me crazy. I went to the police, but they threw up their hands at my words. You claim that you were humiliated and beaten, however, you have no evidence. The policeman said, we can't do anything without confirmation. When you have proof, then come. I was in shock and didn't get a response. From that moment on, I lived in fear. Charlie started waiting for me at the hospital with flowers, then waited at the entrance. He begged for forgiveness, but I was afraid that every word of his love could suddenly turn into an outburst of anger. Sometimes I would wake up, pick up my phone, and be horrified to see hundreds of missed calls and lots of text messages. Their declarations of love were mixed with curses. He wrote that he couldn't live without me, that he was ready to commit suicide, and then he wished me dead, and then begged me to forgive him again. I tried to run away. I decided to rent an apartment and move in, but I didn't have any friends left, so Harry came to my rescue again, putting me up with his sister. I took a leave of absence from work, and Harry also supported me in this decision. But soon Charlie tracked me down again. He found me in a dark entrance, pressed me against the wall, tried to kiss me, and I started screaming. When I screamed, the next door opened. The sound startled Charlie, and he ran, but said goodbye. You will never get rid of me, my love. You promised. You took an oath. Only death will separate us. Do you understand? Then I remembered the words of my ex-mother-in-law. She could have helped me. Actually, I wasn't really hoping for help from Emma. The woman made it clear that she would always be on her son's side. But I decided to give it a try. I bought a plane ticket, and a few hours later I found myself on the doorstep of my mother-in-law Emma's apartment. I was without things and without hope when Emma opened the door. She gasped. She did not immediately recognize me. Only a shadow remained of the beautiful Agatha, trembling and broken. I, sobbing, knelt down. Please help, I whispered. I heard her sob, nervous and shrill. At the same moment, Emma was next to me. She also knelt down and hugged me. We were both shaking. I'm sorry, my girl, Emma muttered, sobbing. It's my fault. I'm so sorry for you. Her heart ached. Yes, she loved her son, no matter who he was. But at that moment she felt sorry for me, who grew up without the love of my parents and fell into the net of her son, a vicious, terrible man. I spent a few days at Emma's house. The woman took care of me, but she didn't tell her son anything. Later, she said that Charlie would not bother me anymore. But what did you do? I wondered, not believing in my happiness and liberation. Emma lowered her gaze, looked out the window and hugged herself by the shoulders. What I should have done a long time ago. I sent Charlie for treatment. There he was diagnosed. You know, he's not a bad person. He's a sick man, Emma muttered, confused, and said. This time I hugged her, comforting her. Emma didn't cheat. Charlie disappeared from my life. I didn't want to know where he was or what was happening to him. It took me a lot of time and sessions with a therapist to come to my senses. At first I lost weight. Then I started wearing beautiful clothes again. A year later, I went dancing again. And then she agreed to a date with Harry. We became closer after that incident. We were friends, and he invited me to the theater. This time our relationship developed slowly. I was in no hurry to get married anymore, and Harry gave me time. Despite the difficulties, we found happiness. We got married and had children, two lovely girls. I tried not to think about the past. After all, the past is a ghost that had no place in the present. There was only true love in it. That's what I decided, because I didn't want to be a victim anymore. How do you like this story? Write your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the channel.